And we're starting with the public hearing in just a moment. Okay, Mayor Copeland.
Okay, the public hearing scheduled for 2 o'clock is
And we're
called.
starting with the public hearing in just a moment.
The public hearing scheduled for 2 o'clock is brought to order.
Mayor Copeland.
The clerk. You can't hear me? Public hearing scheduled for 2 o'clock is brought to order. Are we ready?
Okay, I believe we are now. Sorry about that. We were receiving feedback.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all right. The public hearing scheduled for 2 o'clock is called to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton.
Here.
Dr. Estrop.
Here.
Mr. O'Neill.
Here.
Mr. Rue.
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here. The purpose of this meeting is for public hearing to consider proposed change in zoning. Has proper legal notice been given to the hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 4.35 acres located at 1315 West High Street from G Green Space Park and School District to RM12 Low Density Multifamily Residence District was published in the Springfield News and Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on December 16, 2020.
I move the communication and notice be ordered received, recorded in the minutes and filed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Staff report.
Okay, good afternoon, commissioners. Could I get permission to share my screen, please?
Sure.
You should be good, Steve.
It still says I can't. Can you do the one that says Stephen Thompson? Give that one permission.
Okay, try that one.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so this rezoning case is for 1315 West High Street. You'll see the approximately 4.35 acre area outlined in yellow on the screen. This is on West High Street. Over here is Bechtel Avenue, where it transitions into Dayton Road. And this is the West Jefferson Springfield School site. For the surrounding land use and zoning, to the north and east are residential, zoned RS8. To the south is residential, zoned RM12 and RS5. Then to the west is commercial, zone CC2. Here is a plat map showing where the new 4.35 acre area will be. Here's a view of the property from West High Street. For the background on this case, the applicant seeks approval to rezone 4.35 acres of the subject parcel to RM12. The applicant is working with a developer to construct a senior living development that will be no taller than 2 stories on the site. The current G district zoning does not allow for any development other than for a school, park, or government use. For the analysis on this case, the Connect Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows this future character area as institutional campus. The proposed uses in the RM12 district are compatible with the surrounding land uses. The thoroughfare plan shows West High Street is classified as a secondary arterial street. Return reports from other city departments show no objections. Staff recommendation for this item is approval of the request to rezone 1315 West High Street. The City Planning Board unanimously recommended approval on this item, and I can answer questions, and the applicant is also on the meeting.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
How many units are they proposing in the plans?
The developer might be able to better answer that to see what they've settled on.
Okay, should we let the petitioner speak? Okay, petitioner, you're open to speak.
Good afternoon. This is John Stockton. We're proposing 40 units in a two-story elevated building.
Any other questions of the petitioners from other city commissioners?
I have a question for our staff. This is Joyce. Were there any objections?
No, we did not receive any objections, either by phone, email, or at the City Planning Board meeting.
Thank you.
So this is an empty property where there used to be a middle school and has not been used for some time. Any other questions of the petitioner?
Mayor Copeland, was this where Clark Middle School used to be?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else the petitioner wants to say?
I have nothing further.
Okay. Their motion to conclude the hearing.
So moved, Estrop.
Second, Rue.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. So is there a separate hearing on another issue? Or that's the same one?
Just one.
Okay. So the city commission meeting is called to order. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our God, we're grateful for the opportunity to meet and make decisions that are important to the community. We look forward to a time when we can be in public meetings again. But in the meantime, we really express our concern for our community and for all of those who are ill and all of the people who are trying to help care for them. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. First readings by title only.
Authorizing a contribution to the Springfield Foundation in the amount of $50,000 toward the Columbia Street Cemetery project, which seeks to restore the Columbia Street Cemetery, also known as the Springfield Burial Grounds. Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with Dayton Sweeping Service Incorporated, doing business as DSS Sweeping Service Incorporated, for the sweeping and cleaning of city streets for an amount not to exceed $165,307. Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the contract with the Endurance Group LLC, doing business as Emerald Green Lawn and Landscape Pros, for the mowing of the boulevards for an amount not to exceed $37,400.02. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with JCI Jones Chemicals Incorporated for the purchase of sodium hypochlorite for use by the city's wastewater treatment plant for a period of 1 year with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $82,800. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Republic Services of Ohio Hauling LLC for the removal of catch basin debris and trash and grit for a period of 3 years with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $284,152.96 for the initial 3-year period.
Are there any questions or comments on first readings?
Yes, I was wondering if staff could tell us exactly what restoration work will be done at the Columbia Street Cemetery.
Yes, Commissioners. So I'm going to share my screen with you, so if you can see that. So the Columbia Street Cemetery, or also known as the former Springfield Burial Grounds, is located in our downtown. It's a historic cemetery that has several people that fought during the Revolutionary War and then just after with the War of 1812, et cetera. And it has fallen into disrepair in terms of the actual monuments, a lot of it due to the age of those stones that exist in there. The city does own and maintain the cemetery in terms of the upkeep, grass and trees and so forth. The plan is a local group came together to raise funds to restore the cemetery, specifically focusing on the restoration of the monuments themselves, the headstones, as well as adding additional features to this, what is an amenity to our downtown. Again, a lot of history behind this cemetery. There's a lot of walking tours that occur throughout the cemetery. And so the group is really trying to restore the cemetery to a level of really pride for our community and specifically our downtown. And so this first image that I'm showing you is along the Columbia Street side. So they propose doing kind of some ornate fencing with some stone wall and wrought iron gate and so forth, and then indicating the Columbia Street Cemetery. And then the drawing is an overhead. The next one I'm sharing with you shows that they hope to restore some of the original walking paths. So you see kind of in that triangle shape there, breaking the cemetery into 3 parts, was walking paths that once existed. And they hope to do a center memorial honoring the time period and so forth that many of those are buried in, but really bringing, again, a new life to this historical asset that's located in downtown Springfield. So that is their plan. The project overall is $700,000. So we are contributing $50,000 to that. As I mentioned, we currently own the cemetery. We are working with those local project funders to potentially put the property into some sort of LLC that would maintain the premises in perpetuity into the future. And they're also working on raising above the $700,000 an additional allotment of money that would be put into an endowment that would be there to maintain the cemetery into the future.
What a great project. Congratulate everyone involved and for all of the help that we're getting, yet another private-public partnership designed to improve our community. That's great. Thanks to all involved in this.
I know that an archaeologist who used to be at Wittenberg had students go in there and try to identify materials, et cetera. Actually, my granddaughter did it one summer. You know, there has been work done to try to find out what's there, but it's really is in bad repair, and this would make it much better for the community. Anybody else?
The partnership with Wittenberg was a great resource for them to allow to advance this project forward in identifying the graves and location, but also that Wittenberg analysis of the grounds is what uncovered the original walkways, which allowed them to pursue putting those back.
Cool.
I just have
Since
a
I've
question.
been, it's just hard for me not to speak since I've been in hundreds of cemeteries, but I'll say that the fact that there's a group that wants to come together and make this cemetery not look like a spooky, unkept cemetery, but restore the historical value, especially where it's located. Really excited about it. Privately, we're going to be involved as well. I just think it's important that everybody that can get involved with this project that cares about it should. And Wittenberg has been huge. Somebody just talked to me about this about 2 weeks ago in detail, and it's really exciting what they want to do.
My question was, with the wrought iron fencing and the gate, will the cemetery still remain after the restoration open to the public?
Yes, the intent is for it to remain open to the public. So yes, there will be the wrought iron and the gate and so forth, but it's intended that people can go at their leisure and walk the premises, walk the walking paths. There will be educational markers placed throughout the cemetery that identify a lot of the history of those that are buried there, again, as well as the time period that this cemetery represents.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, anybody have any questions or comments on other first readings? If not, let's move forward with second readings.
To amend ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing existing zoning code section 1102.02R9 pertaining to the combined definition of a restaurant, drive-in, carry-out, and replacing it with new sections 1102.02R9 titled Restaurant Drive-In and 1102.02R10 titled Restaurant Carry-Out.
Questions or comments from the commission?
Move to
We need a
adopt.
motion. Okay,
Move to adopt.
Second.
Sorry, I got ahead of the horse there. Okay, are there any questions or comments?
I
Yes.
think just to, go ahead, Joyce.
Could the staff go over this again, please, on what this would mean to our restaurants and current restaurants and drive-through carryouts?
Yes, Commissioner, I'll have Steve Thompson answer that.
Yes, Commissioner. So what this will do, there are certain places in our zoning code that prohibit drive-in restaurants. And what that does, the way drive-in restaurants are currently defined, it also prohibits carry-out restaurants. So separating drive-in restaurants and carry-out restaurants from the two different things. Our hope is to allow carry-out restaurants in areas that currently prohibit the drive-in restaurants. So what ideally that would be in an established neighborhood where they could rezone to a neighborhood commercial district. That district, for instance, prohibits drive-in restaurants, but the hope is that someone could start a carry-out restaurant at that same location.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
To amend ordinance number 9190 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing the existing zoning code section 1175.01 pertaining to rezoning requirements upon annexation and replacing it with new section 1175.01 titled Annexation.
So moved, Estra.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Just again, sort of what Commissioner Chilton did on the last motion, could staff refresh us in terms of what this is going to accomplish?
Sure, commissioners. So what this will do, currently when a property gets annexed into the city, it retains its township zoning designation. What this ordinance change will do is when that property is now annexed, it will be assigned a city zoning and sign district. So that will make enforcing local codes simpler. It will also make any future development on these properties a little more streamlined and the same as other developments within the city.
Great. Thank you very much.
Jill, do we have anybody in the audience who wanted to speak to this?
No, sir.
Okay, anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.53 acre at 716, 718, and 726 Court Street, Springfield, Ohio, from CN2 Neighborhood Commercial District to CC2 Community Commercial District.
So moved, Estra.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 4.35 acres at 1315 West High Street, Springfield, Ohio, from G Green Space Park and School District to RM12 Low Density Multifamily Residence District and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estra.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
I had one more. When this is with the public hearing that we had, the housing that this is going to be created here, is it going to be a subsidized units or is it going, I know it's for the elderly. But we didn't ask him that and now that it's going to be approved today, is it going to be that? So.
Yes, Commissioner. So this is a project that the applicant will be eventually in February applying for tax credits
Okay.
through the state tax credit program for this project, and which led to the request to hear this as an emergency from the applicant due to the timing of the application with the state tax credits.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that that's all on the table so we can't come back on us that says we didn't investigate that. So that's good. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So I just have a question, Brian. Yes, this is Joyce. Is this in competition with the Community Gardens project?
It was informed today from the applicant that this is planned for senior housing. So my understanding of how the tax credit program is, it is a competitive process. Yes, I would foresee the IHN project and this project potentially being in that same pool of funds. I don't know if the applicant can speak
So
more directly to that.
that would be good.
Is the applicant still available to speak?
Yes, we are. And yes, it would compete. Well, it will compete against all other similar projects in that pool for senior housing.
Across the state, right?
Correct.
But that includes one or two in Springfield? One or just two? I mean, two or just one?
We only have one other senior tax credit project that's being submitted to the state. The other is related to permanent supportive housing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Depending upon what is applied for, both projects could be funded if they score high enough.
Right.
So let me get this straight. We are looking at the IHN project. We're looking at this project where the Old Clark School as senior housing and Community Gardens is supportive housing.
No, Community Gardens is senior tax credit housing. The third project is a project submitted by IHN related to permanent supportive housing. And that will be off of South Yellow Spring Street.
And which is competitive?
The two would be the senior tax credits would fall out of the same pool of money that the state would fund.
Yeah, but which of the other two would this compete with? Both of them, or which one?
Just the Community Gardens, NHP's project.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Everybody okay? We understand?
Sure.
Thank you. Good luck to all of them.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
It only competes with one of the two others.
Right.
I thought, yeah, one of them's in your category and one is not. Correct?
That's right.
Any other questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Confirming and approving the transfer of monies among various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So
Move to
moved,
adopt.
Estra.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I noticed that one of those items was the parking garage fund. How long is the garage parking free to our citizens?
Yes, commissioners, we have adopted that all of 2021 will be free for everybody utilizing the garage. So for 2021, the garage will remain free.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Estra.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Confirming purchases and the obtaining of services for the city and providing for payments therefore and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estra.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an amendment to the fare collection equipment grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration to increase the grant in an amount not to exceed $1,324,000 for the purchase of 5 medium-duty buses, 2 support vehicles, and shop equipment. Authorizing the city manager, law director, and the director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said grant amendment and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estra.
Move to adopt.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Yes. How soon, I have a question, Mayor Copeland. This is Joyce. How
Okay.
soon will those vehicles be made available after they are purchased?
Commissioner, we will put them into service as quickly as we can after service. I'm not sure of the exact process. We have to accept the buses. They're inspected by us to make sure that they meet our needs. And I can't give you details as to the exact length of that process, but we'll be starting forward with the purchase of those in the first quarter. not sure of the exact length
you.
of the purchase cycle there.
We would hope in 2021, but we have certainly seen supply chain issues involving all purchases due to COVID. So we're not certain the total length of time it will take for us to actually take these into possession.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an amendment to the CARES Act grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration to increase the grant in an amount not to exceed $574,000 for preventive maintenance and planning activities. Authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to perform all acts and execute all documents they consider necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said grant agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
Questions or comments?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Yes, I just had a comment that I'm reading that this is no local match with this. Is that correct?
Yes, both of these items do not require a local match. This is CARES Act money that we received an initial grant of $1,774,000, and we kind of designated that for maintenance and ADA and operations and planning. This is an add-on to that particular grant of $574,000, where we'll use it for preventive maintenance and planning. But there is no local money required here.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing a contribution to the Community Improvement Corporation, CIC, in the amount of $25,000 toward the Expand Greater Springfield campaign, which focuses on workforce development and job creation activities in the Springfield community and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes. Job force readiness and workforce development are key to our ongoing economic development. You know, it's a great situation we're in some cases right now, where there are more jobs than we have people to fill them, qualified people, and that's the problem. So workforce development and training or retraining is critical for this city in terms of being able to continue to move forward with more additional economic development. So I will support strongly this ordinance.
I agree. Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the acceptance of a donation from the Defense Logistics Agency of a used iRobot, model number 510 PackBot, with an estimated new item value of $77,060 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
What exactly
like-
does this robot do?
I'm going to ask Lee to describe that because when I saw iRobot, I was thinking of the Roomba vacuum. So I'll have Lee explain what this PackBot can do.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners. Yeah, Brian's first question was it a Roomba? And we've checked. We don't think that's part of its repertoire. What this is it is a tracked robot. If anybody, citizens or anybody wants to look it up, if you Google in PackBot, they're called PackBots because they were portable robots that are military forces could use and take out in the field. but they have a camera. They have camera attachments. They have like a claw arm. And what these robots do is they allow us to be able to surveil, like say in a SWAT standoff, or let's say there's a suspicious device somewhere and we need to check it out. It allows us to send the robot in, and these things are capable of actually climbing upstairs and climbing downstairs, and they can extend that camera up about 4 or 5 feet straight up on an arm. So it allows us to get a closer look at things, or to be able to check something or manipulate it without putting officers or citizens in any kind of direct danger. The old way would be we'd have to send an officer up to look at it.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. That's a version of it, and this arm that you see on here can extend up and stand up, and the little tracks can actually rotate so it can climb upstairs and obstacles. So thank you, Brian. I appreciate that.
My grandson would love one of those. Where can we apply to get one?
Well, they're a little pricey, but yeah, we've already used these. We've got another robot that we may have talked about earlier last year that they nicknamed Snoopy. And so I guess we'll have to nickname this one Spike, because that's Snoopy's brother in Peanuts. But we've used those to be able to get up and look in windows. They can actually open doorknobs, things like that. This really increases the safety for our folks, and it also increases our flexibility as an agency to serve people. This is off the DLA, the 1033 program for surplus government items. This one's in great shape. So that's a great asset for citizens. You know, our taxpayers pay so much money out for federal taxes and all that to support the military, and this is a way that it kind of comes back to us locally.
Lee, didn't they have something like this early on for explosives and things like that?
They sure did, Commissioner. Matter of fact, that was one of the primary uses for these pack bots for the military. So they were kind of like almost like canine helpers for bomb folks, explosive ordnance disposal folks in the military. And they're also getting used for bomb squad people and police forces.
Nice to have this coming in as a donation from the DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency. That's a nice addition to have.
Absolutely. We've the citizens and our agency we've really benefited off this. Those MRAPs that help protect the officers at that SWAT standoff, as well as the community by blocking shots that might have gone into houses. That was another one that have really proven to be a benefit for our community.
Right.
Okay. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 2 to the agreement with Property Registration Champions LLC, ProChamps, to extend the contract period to February 11, 2022, and declaring an emergency therein.
so moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, I think I'd ask our city manager this earlier. Are landlords able to pay the fees using their mobile phones?
Yes, Commissioner. I'm going to pull Steve Thompson up and he can talk about, so for the rest of the commissioners, this is related to our vacant property registry and our contract and the $100 fee that is associated with it. Steve, if you could talk through how people can provide payment for this, that would be great.
Sure. So this is a renewal of the existing company we partner with to enforce the vacant property registry. So it's a very mobile friendly way to get everything registered and paid for. So you go to prochamps.com and you can enter your address, or if you received a notice in the mail, there should be a number on there you can enter. So that's the easiest way to get everything registered and paid for. I tried it on my phone. I was able to get it to work mobily. But if you do have any issues getting a property registered, I'd encourage any citizens to give us a call, and we can help walk them through that process. We can get in touch with someone directly at ProChamps. They do have some ability to do that over the phone for folks who might not have the technology at their fingertips. So if anyone does have any issues with that, give us a call at 937-324-7744. That'll put you in touch with Code Enforcement Coordinator Jeremy Least. He is the Code Enforcement Officer in charge of our vacant property registration program.
Thank you. That's great.
Just as we were about to really kick our program into full implementation, COVID hit. Brian and Steve, do you anticipate, and Shannon, if she's available, do you anticipate as we come out of COVID through the vaccination program that we'll tee this one up again for a little broader circulation of information, or do you think that's necessary at this point?
Steve, I'll have you if you just want to give a quick update on stats. Despite COVID, code enforcement has been very successful in getting registrations. But Steve, if you want to give just a little update on it.
Yeah, definitely in the future, I think we want to give a more in-depth update about how the first year and a half went. But so far to this point, we've been able to register 340 vacant properties. We've identified an additional 737 that have not been registered. So this fall, we began sending out civil fines to those owners who haven't registered. So hopefully in 2021, we'll see more success with everything else we do. COVID threw a wrench into how we were planning to implement this program. We actually did have a computer terminal set up here at City Hall for folks who didn't have technology available. They could come in and take care of that, but however, we weren't able to actually implement that. Hopefully we will some point in the future. So yeah, we've been able to register 340 properties, and we continue every day with the help of ProChamps to track down the owners of those other properties to make sure we get them registered.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was just going to add real quick, a piece to that, commissioners, is also for the public safety side. That was a big component of implementing the vacant property registry. And so Jeremy and Steve work with the GIS coordinator, Shane Gray, at the county, and these do get flagged in the system. And then that way, if there is a 911 call out to one of these properties, our first responders are made aware of the property being vacant and any data or information that may be available about that vacant property.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
The next three items have been added to the agenda. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a CARES Act sub-grant agreement with the Clark County, Ohio Board of County Commissioners and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a funding agreement with Interfaith Hospitality Network of Springfield, Ohio, IHN, for homeless shelter operations and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Wonder if Shannon could give us an update on our homeless situation.
Yes, commissioners, I will pull her up. There we go.
There we go. Good afternoon, commissioners. I am glad to give you an update today, and I will tell you while we were on the commission meeting, I received an additional update. For the last few months, these updates have been filled with a whole lot of anxiety and not a lot of answers. But today I can tell you that things are beginning to change. Things are beginning to change not because the unprecedented amount of need has changed. That is definitely still in place. However, IHN, through cooperation and support with the state of Ohio, the Ohio Housing Motel, the Ohio Hotel, Motel, and Lodging Association, as well as the city and the county, have been able to work with various hotel operations here locally to open up additional rooms to assist with the non-congregate emergency shelter needs that we have. So as of this morning, well, actually, as of this afternoon, I will add in the numbers. There are 237 individuals in emergency shelter. That is the largest number that we have actually had in emergency shelter. What you are seeing at this point is the emergency shelter wait list starting to get fulfilled. Just while we have been meeting since 2 o'clock, I received a message that 34 additional individuals have been brought into that transition from emergency shelter wait list to emergency shelter non-congregate housing. Of these individuals, we are currently serving 44 families that comprise 81 children. That number is high. However, I will tell you that number is going down from the last number of months because families are starting to transition into permanent housing. It has been a long 2020 when it associates with the need of homelessness in the city of Springfield, but the numbers are beginning, though they're very high, beginning to go in the right direction. So it is a very good thing. And I think that the leadership of the entire community, from the private sector, all of the elected officials, and the interfaith sector, as well as clearly the heroes of interfaith hospitality, need to be commended in sticking with, just this unimaginable situation and doing whatever it takes in the face of adversity, with every hoop, loop, and mountain that was put in place to just continue to persevere and start moving these numbers in the right place.
Shannon, would you thank all of your people for their efforts and IHN for its work?
I will be glad to.
We look forward to hopefully bringing those numbers down even further in the weeks ahead.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay, anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
reappointing Michael Krantz to the mediation board.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We appreciate his willingness to serve. Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. That concludes our agenda. Are there other items that come before us from commissioners? Mr. Estrop.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to ask Brian how we're doing relative to services related to COVID. Also how the South Side, particularly the Kroger store, is doing, and then a review from Mark on our financial position.
Yes, Commissioners. So we continue about the same level that we were at last week in terms of number of employees that are impacted either directly or indirectly with COVID-19. So whether they are actually a positive case or have had exposure, we're hanging in, not as bad as we've been, but we're also still higher numbers than we obviously like to see. It has not had an overall impact yet on our service operation, though I'm guessing specifically in the public safety, overtime and so forth does build up and obviously has an impact on those that are coming in as well. So we're continuing to monitor and watch that and evaluate it and make sure that that all of our employees are getting healthy and taking the time that they need to get healthy from COVID-19, but also making sure the employees that are here are remaining healthy as well. So we continue to track that, evaluate that, but you know, it's just a shout out to all of our employees and for the work that they've continued to do in what's been probably the most difficult and challenging time most of them have seen at any point in their career. And they continue just doing the good work for this people of Springfield. So I'm very blessed to be a part of such a great organization. Also, I just want to mention that we are going to continue virtual meetings into February. So I believe our next meeting is February 2nd, and we will continue to be virtual for that meeting. And then also the following meeting, which falls on February 16th. We would hope maybe by the end of February that the vaccine will be more well distributed throughout the community, and we can feel confident in coming back to the forum and being in person. So the 2 February meetings will be at 2 p.m. and being held virtually. As far as the vaccines concerned, if people really, the health department is the main source of information there. So if individuals have questions about the vaccine or would like to know kind of the schedule of the vaccine, because a lot is coming out right now because of phase 1B starting to roll out. And I can say as of today, phase 1B started with anyone that was 80 years old and older. Are now eligible for the vaccine. They can go to the Clark County Health Department's website at ccchd.com and find information out about where to register or where to get the vaccine. Starting next week, those individuals 75 and older will be eligible to begin getting the vaccine, as well as those with certain medical conditions. So again, getting the information from the health department is a great thing to do to find out if you're eligible, both by age or by certain medical conditions. A week following that, we'll follow up with individuals 70 and older will become eligible, as well as teachers and staff in K through 12 buildings. So that's February 1st, they become eligible. And then the following week, February 8th, individuals 65 and older become eligible for the vaccine as well. So I would hope that we see the quantity of doses that come into our community continue to rise. I will say our health department is doing a phenomenal job at getting the vaccine distributed once they have the vaccine in hand. If people feel that the process has been too slow, part of the issue is actually getting enough supply of the vaccine here. If the health department gets the supply, they do distribute it. So we're hopeful that that supply will increase in the coming weeks, and that all those individuals that become eligible over the next several weeks are able to get a vaccine if they want a vaccine. As far as the Kroger project, we continue to work with the developer, Dillon Company, and I hope to actually bring next commission meeting a redevelopment agreement between us and the Dillon Company for the Kroger project as we continue and look to move forward with that restoration of that building, as well as hopefully bringing a grocer to the south end of our community. As you know, we're also working in conjunction on a transportation network project, an upgrade to the South Limestone Corridor. The public comment period ended last week, but we continue to work. We had some great conversations last week with different individuals in the community, and we continue to take that feedback and incorporate that feedback as we move into the detailed design phase currently. Mark?
Thank you.
Yes, commissioners. As I mentioned in the last meeting, we finished the year of 2020 stronger than I had anticipated or expected, and feel very fortunate to do that. I'm looking at our income tax receipts for the first couple weeks of the year, and we're down about 2.5%. I wouldn't put much stock in that at this point. It's too early, even in the month of January, to be alarmed about that number. We'll obviously keep an eye on it as we move forward through the month and into February. But again, we have strong cash balances at this point, and we're very early in the year. So I'm still pleased to come off the year we had last year.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I think we can really be happy that our employers have continued to work. And, that is our primary source of money, is the tax on wages. And that is still holding up well, right, Art?
Yes, I mean, like I said, there could be some timing differences in that number where we're down about $50,000. But again, I think things are continuing on. We still have some CARES Act money that we will be able to take advantage of early in this year. So all in all, I think we're in good shape at this point.
I can tell you other cities in Ohio are having a lot more trouble than we are, so it's good.
Yes.
Anybody else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Esther.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.